Hey, what's up, YouTube? What's up, Black family? How y'all doing? Hope everyone's having a good, productive day or had a good, productive evening. This is the Black Critique here once again with another subject. All right, so what we're going to be talking about today is a little incident that I have. I'm a father. I'm a married man with children. Right, so I have kids in high school, got a kid in college, and things of that nature. So the story goes, I was talking with my son, right? We're in the car together and things like that. And the subject came up. I think the subject came up with the whole the baby fiasco or whatever and things like that. And we were talking about HIV and things like that. Oh, before I go even further, as a disclaimer, the experience, the stories I'm telling you are of my own. Um, this is not to teach hate or promote hate or dislike um people with diseases like AIDS or to discriminate against anybody who is consider themselves LGBTQ plus or whatever. This is not to offend anybody. This is just basically me stating the facts of my life, right? And of many other people who have lived through a particular experience that tends to be forgotten or confused about what happened, or people try to, muddy the waters of history and things like that. This is in no way my story is promote hate, advocate hate, or anything like that. I do understand the day and time that we live in, and I even have, I have family that is gay and things like that. So this is not to promote, homosexuality and stuff like that. Look, I understand this day and age, LBGT community got more rights than black people. So I know how to tread carefully. So with that said, moving forward, so that whole fiasco happened and things like that. And I was like, well, and I read what the baby said and things like that. At first I was like, okay. But then I was like, oh, okay, well, no. He went a little bit too far there. But what I was focusing on telling my son while he had his friend on the line, right? So my son is like 16, so his friend, she's the same age. And I was saying, because Elton John and all these other people saying like, oh, you're trying to demonize people who had AIDS and blah 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 blah. So yes, back in the 80s, right, when in the early 80s, a lot of people that had AIDS were white homosexual men. Period. I don't care where you heard or what you heard or what you got other heard from, especially they got this stupid thing going out. Oh, well, from Africa. Like, yeah, everything is always black people, but people weren't dropping dead like flies in Africa. That was much later on. In the 80s, in certain places in Africa, they had famine and things like that. So it was more of the, showing my age here, singing "We Are the World," to raise funds for certain places in Africa that were starving. That what was going on in Africa in the 80s for the need for global outreach to help Africa. It was not AIDS. So when people say, oh, Africans were dying, it started in Africa and stuff like that, that is a total lie. That is a total lie. So I'm telling my son, and I was like, hey, look, in the beginning, right, you had it was a lot of white men on the down low, right, that kept their homosexual um life separate, right, because they want to keep it secret because they didn't want to affect their careers, right? So anyway, moving forward, I said this, and then I'm just giving a breakdown of the history of what it is and everything, right? Then I started telling my son the story because, hey, look, when it was going on, I was in junior high school, or I was in junior high school to pretty much being in high school. So, during where the AIDS epidemic was happening and stuff like that. And we found out a lot of people, a lot of Hollywood stars that were on the low. Because remember, the only people that had HIV were homosexual men, because it was only a white homosexual disease, right? That only homosexual men had. And it was either through that or sharing needles, or those the only way it was transferable. In the beginning, it was early. No one really knew how you caught it, but everyone knew the common denominator. It was people who share needles and homosexual men. So if you're a homosexual man and you did drugs, things like that, yes, people did a lot of fear mongering across you, and then you were probably ostracized from society due to the fear that people had. So I'm telling my son, when that was happening, right? All these movie stars and stuff like that, I'm like, wow, wow, wow. And I told him I said, other people, so you had homosexual men, right? That they were probably bisexual, but they're gay either way, right? They were gay, and they would have heterosexual sex with women, but they were either experimenting with the women, or they were being bisexual, or they were just, they were flip-flopping in their sexual behavior and things like that. So I'm telling my son, this is how it transferred to heterosexual people, right? It's transferred to other women, and then women gave it to men, and then heterosexual men gave it to heterosexual women, and so on, so on, and so forth, vicious cycle. Then everybody gets it, right? And he was like, really, really? I was like, yeah, that's how it happened. And then his friend on the phone was like, huh, what, huh? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I lived it. And I was like, let me tell you something. I said, imagine, right? You have someone that right? They did everything right. They graduated high school. They went to college, right? They graduated college. They have their bachelors, and they have their masters, and they're at the height of their career. They just got married. Oh my gosh, now they're having a baby. The perfect family, the American dream, what pretty much basically everybody wants in life, right? And then imagine, right? This is a person that you know intimately, right? And imagine, right, while they're having a baby, right? They're pregnant and everything, they're having their baby, everything falls apart. And then, you look from the outside in, you don't understand what's going on. Her baby's sick, and, her husband is kind of estranged, and you don't know why. Come to find out, right? Me being like, what, 14, about my son's age, 14, 15, and I'm like, well, what's going on? So imagine this person sits down, and after their child has died. So I'm thinking the person's depressed and they're just sick. Imagine this person sitting you down saying, hey, look, you probably heard I don't feel well, blah, 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 blah. And this person is saying, hey, look, the baby that died, yes, she was a preemie and everything, and she died because she was a preemie. That's what I was told. She's like, no, she died because she had AIDS. I'm like, what? How does Samantha have AIDS? Like, what? That makes no sense. And Mom says, because, obviously, yes, because I have AIDS. I'm like, stop playing now. Obviously, this is my aunt now. So there's a person who I know intimately that's telling me this, right? She says, well, I don't use drugs, so it's not like I'm using drugs. She told me, I don't use drugs. I never use drugs. It's not that. This is after a while she was sick. She said, I found out that during college, I was with this guy. He was like my boyfriend, whatever, things like that. And, when I found out I had AIDS and things like that, I was trying to track, like, okay, who is it? Who is this person that I probably got it from? Because I know I don't do drugs. Kind of find out he was a gay man, right? And he was doing things with gay men. And he said, he said she got it from him. So she found all this out after she was at the pinnacle of her life, where everything was going good. So everyone said that, oh, my baby cousin died because she was a preemie. And they hid that from my grandmother because they didn't want to let my grandmother, because it's been devastating to my grandmother. But eventually they had to tell my grandmother. And everyone knew, because remember, this is the 80s. So all the treatments and things that they have back right now, they didn't have back then. So like you got people like Magic Johnson and all these other people that's living for like 20 something years with it. Back then, they didn't have that type of advanced medicine. So I saw my aunt just deteriorating and dying in front of my eyes, right? Her husband had AIDS. So obviously it's not her fault, but they got a divorce. So imagine that being done to somebody, right? And I'm witnessing all this, right? And then you see the HIV epidemic and things like that. And you see all these, then you see homosexuals and stuff like that being demonized for it. And a lot of fear mongering is happening and stuff like that, right? And it's heart-wrenching to see someone who you love suffer. And like I said, we didn't know how it spread. She never came to, she self-quarantined herself and isolated herself away to the point we can't even hug her. She didn't want us hugging her. It's like, it's a horrible thing to go through, to see someone that you love go through that, right? So the thing that's the kick in the pants, after I finished telling my son this story, right, about where HIV comes from, he was like, oh, she hung up. And then I'm like, okay, oh well. And then, he's like, I know her. She probably got upset. Like, got upset at what? She probably didn't like what you said about gay men. This is not chastising gay men, like gay men purposely did this or anything like that. This is just the historical fact of what happened. Then my son later on said, like, yeah, she was upset, but she understands or something like that or whatever, and she got over it. So it's like this generation right now is on some, hey, they don't know where AIDS actually came from. Even when I spoken to my other son's friend, he say the same thing. I'm a person, I know that popular belief isn't always fact. So you keep hearing the same garbage. And these are kids, right? But the fact that, popular belief is being accepted as fact is problematic. So this is the whole purpose of me doing this video, just to remind young generations and generations like mine that went through it, not to forget the people that suffered, right? The people that suffer. So right now, with the baby thing and the whole debacle and all the other stuff like that, it's saying, well, it's a homosexual thing and you don't want to deal with homosexual people. And the thing that I find disrespectful and hurtful is that, yeah, other people died too that weren't homosexuals. Other people died, right, being with homosexual people that they didn't know they had AIDS, and the people that they were with didn't know they had AIDS, so they died too. So because they're not homosexual, that what they don't, and they're heterosexual, that their lives don't matter. Like, that's the part that's pissing me the fuck off. Like, my aunt's life and my cousin's life doesn't matter. They had other people that were innocent, that the heterosexual people that had AIDS that died. Right? So all these just tears just for them, and forgetting that heterosexual people that was with gay people, they also died being with heterosexual people. They just forgotten, like they don't matter. We should just cry only the people who had it. And that's what pisses me off. So I'm a person, I love to show and prove. For people like, oh, that's gasping, clutching their pearls, like, oh my gosh, what, he's a liar, what is he talking about? I have no problem showing and proving, and that's my testimony. That's my life of what happened. You ask anybody that's in that's in 35 and over, they're gonna be like, yeah, that happened. But I'm gonna show and prove. Again, while viewing and listening to what I'm saying, please get out of your own feelings. Please get out of your own head. Try to put yourself in other people's position. I know right now the LGBTQ thing is very emphasized and is very important for those people who are being discriminated against in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, we have to also understand the historical and medical ramifications that happened in the beginning, that happened in the beginning, right? So this generation is extremely sensitive. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you didn't like what I said. Cancel culture. Oh, this, that. Instead of having it being like a teachable moment to be like, hey, look, I understand you're hurt or you may feel uncomfortable, but not everything that is said and not everything is that's being said or done is to make you feel good. There's certain things that are the truth that are just horrible, right? So try to get out of your feelings, right? And just understand the facts of the matter. And based upon the facts of the matter, you know how to go about your life and go about things on certain information. So let's keep it pushing. So here we have a list of, you see here, famous gay people who died of AIDS. Now you're going to notice the commonality that they all discovered that they were sick all at a specific time period, right? You're gonna see certain common denominators. So, like I said I was gonna show and prove, right, about, you know, the first people to have AIDS were white homosexual males. So, as we go down here, I apologize for the advertisements. Freddie Mercury, for those of you who know Freddie Mercury, you know, he was a musician. See right here, from Queen, he was diagnosed with AIDS in 1987, right? He said he did not publicly discuss his diagnosis until November 22nd, 1991, when he released a statement confirming his illness, right? And you can see he died around 1991, around that time. So he pretty much was on, you know, unfortunately on his deathbed, basically admitting, hey, look, this is what I have. Remember, they were being demonized for this, right? So, you know, it wasn't something they weren't too forthcoming of, right? That's Freddie Mercury. This other gentleman here is Anthony Perkins. Same thing with him. This you know, says right here, cycle star Anthony Perkins died from AIDS related complications, September 1992, right? So you see, that's around the time when he died, unfortunately. And like I said, so far, late 80s, early 80s to early 90s. That's the time span. That's the time scale right here. Okay, you got Roy Cohen. Roy Cohen again, he was diagnosed with AIDS in 84. He died August 2nd, 1986. Another thing I also like to mention, remember, once you were diagnosed with AIDS, you had less than a decade, way less than a decade, like 4 to 5 years maybe, right? Because like I said before, the drugs back then weren't as advanced as it is today, where you could actually kind of like live with it and it keeps it in check. And, you know, it pretty much they have medicine right now that pretty much strengthens your immune system. Back then, it didn't, because you could see when they get diagnosed, it's like sometimes like the same year, you know, these men have passed. Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson was like, you know, pretty boy, ladies man type movie star. And I remember when I was like a kid, and people were going crazy, like, oh, Rock Hudson died, Rock Hudson has AIDS. It's like, what the hell, how did he have AIDS? He's like a ladies man, he was in all these movies with all these women and da da da. But like I said, they had to keep this a secret because they didn't want to hurt their career. So it says Rock Hudson diagnosed with HIV in 84. He died in October 85. So it's only a year. Hudson and his publicist worked very hard to keep his personal life out of the media, but several of his co-stars have spoken about Hudson's sexuality, saying that he was gay. All right, so that's Rock Hudson. Robert Reed. Now, this is the father of the Brady Bunch. He was another shocker. Another shocker. It was like, what? Father of the Brady Bunch? Like what? It was just unbelievable. Like, I couldn't believe it, right? Brady Bunch actor Robert Reed was diagnosed with HIV, and it is believed that HIV played a major role in his death. He also had colon cancer. Reed died May 12, 1992. Reed was gay, but he kept his sexual orientation private in order to protect his career. Right? So, if you have AIDS and you have cancer, you have that's unfortunate for him. I was sad because I used to look at the Brady Bunch all the time, and I was like, oh wow, this is crazy. Rock Hudson, then Robert Reed. It's like, wow. And this gentleman right here, I believe he came in the 007 movie. So no, yeah, I think he has, but he came in Trading Places, right? Same thing with him. He died of AIDS, or he died of AIDS related complications. Sorry about that. So he was diagnosed with HIV in 87, and then, he died in 92. So like I said, we don't have a lot of time. They don't have a lot of time. It was very unfortunate. Yeah, here we have Liberace right here. He's, for those you don't know, he's very famous. He's a musician. So you can see here that, again, sorry for the advertisement. So you see here, he died on February 4th, right? And look at the year, 87. So we see there's still a correlation going on. And, he has reportedly to be a homosexual, right? The next one is Keith Haring, right? Artist Keith Haring was diagnosed with AIDS in 1987. He died in the 90s due to AIDS-related complications. Haring frequently expresses feelings about gay rights and AIDS awareness in his art. All right, we have here, you got Pedro Zamora. All right, same thing. Well, he mostly died in the 90s. That you see right here. Right, and you have a figure skater here, Andre. I'm not going to probably really pronounce his name. Napella, right here, skater, same thing. He was also a homosexual. He got AIDS in 80. He passed from AIDS in 89. Right. So you see here, this is what I lived through, what everyone knew. It was nothing came from Africa. It wasn't heterosexual people dying from it and things like that. In its inception, it was mostly white homosexual men. And if they weren't white homosexual men, they were drug users, or they received blood through blood transfusion, because it wasn't being screened for AIDS at that time. You have here Steven Stucker, one of my best characters from the movie Airplane. So it says Airplane actor Steven Stucker was diagnosed with AIDS in 84. He died due to AIDS-related complications on April 13th, 86. He was one of the first actors to publicly announce that he had AIDS. All right, so all my point, I feel my point has been made as far as like groups of people who were suffering from AIDS, people who had AIDS, and things of that nature, right? So that's your list. I'm pretty sure there's other lists on the internet and on YouTube and anything like that. I'm just going to put a little spin on it, basically saying there were heterosexual people that died of AIDS due to being with gay people, most likely and indefinitely gay men. Right now, we're going to do mostly heterosexual people that died from AIDS. So we're going through the steps here where it was mostly and only gay men that had AIDS, to basically people who had blood transfusion, or shared needle with white homosexual males. So right here you have Amanda Blake. She pretty much is a famous movie star, as you see right here. So I'm speculating here, because she was with those people like Rock Hudson and all those people during the 70s and 80s and things like that. So I'm going to speculate and say she probably contracted it from them. So it says, better known on TV fans as Miss Kitty on the 1960s TV show Gunsmoke, Blake became the first well-known actress to die from AIDS. Her original cause of death was listed as oral cancer, but her doctor said she died from liver failure brought on by AIDS-related hepatitis. She was diagnosed in 1988. See, it's like the same time frame is happening. A year before her August 1989 death. Friends believe she got the virus from her ex-husband, Mark Spaeth, whatever, a Texas developer who died of AIDS in 1985. So this is all around the same time. You get the correlation here, right? You must know who Charlie Sheen is. So this is more of a recent case, right? Rumors goes around that, he may engage in homosexual every now and again, but probably not, but he is promiscuous. So we all know about Charlie Sheen. So you can see right here, in November 2015, the actor revealed that he'd been living with HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, for at least 4 years. He said that he didn't know how he got it, and he admitted he paid people more than $10 million not to tell anyone he had it. Since then, he became a spokesman for the Swedish brand condoms and a public advocate for safe sex. All right? Eazy-E, NWA, one of my favorite rappers. So right here it says this rapper from the group NWA, the subject of the movie Straight Outta Compton, died in 1995 at 31. A few weeks later, after learning he had AIDS. He didn't say how he got it, but he told the LA Times, "I have 7 children by 6 different mothers. Maybe success was too good to me." His wife, whom he married just before his death, and his infant son didn't get the virus. So this is more like Zamora, it kind of was still spreading around. So Eazy-E obviously, was not a heterosexual man. As far as we know, he wasn't doing any drugs or anything like that. Didn't say anything about drugs transfusion, but hey, like the man said, he had a couple of kids. He doesn't know how he got it. All right. And we have Isaac Asimov. He said the heart and kidney failure that killed the legendary science fiction writer in 1992 were caused by AIDS. He got HIV from a blood transfusion during heart surgery in 1983. It wasn't revealed publicly until his book, It's Been a Good Life, was published in 2002. So like I said, blood transfusions, and using needles and things of that nature. We have Danny, not really that I'm a big Who's the Boss fan. So, for you who don't know, you know who he is. Best known for his role as one of the kids in the '80s sitcom Who's the Boss. Pantero has been HIV positive since 2003. He says he got the virus while using a powerful street drug, crystal meth, which can lead to risky behavior and may make your immune system weak. So, yeah, take that for what it is. Same thing, Andy Bell. I'm not going to get into it too much with him. He's also a homosexual, and his partner, they both have AIDS, and him and his partner died. That's the article right here. Then Magic Johnson. It's going to be the last one. We all know who Magic Johnson is. On the basketball, I take issues with this little article right here. It says the basketball legend announced he was HIV positive in October 1991. The news was a wake-up call to straight men who thought they weren't at risk for the disease, which is a lie. That's a lie. Around 1991, everyone knew you could get it. That's the whole hysteria during when AIDS epidemic first came out. There was a whole big hysteria because no one didn't want to get it. That's why people stayed away from homosexuals and people sharing needles and things like that. So to say that straight men couldn't get it, that's a lie. We knew straight men could have got it. Everyone knew that. Everyone knew that. That's why they stayed away from white homosexual men than gay men as a whole, right? So that's bullshit. Johnson retired from the LA Lakers but played in the 1992 NBA All-Star Game and helped the U.S. Olympic team take the gold later that same year. Since then, he's worked to educate people about HIV and AIDS. So Michael Johnson was one of the first celebrities who had it around in the early 90s, as you can see here, but he had money. He had money, so he could afford better treatment more than other people, so he's one of the few people that's been living with AIDS that long, so thank God the medication, everything has gotten better. So these are the people who had it that are for most of them are straight through circumstances and things like that. They have died. Their lives are very important. My aunt's life is very important. These are also lives that were also taken tragically, right? Because of HIV/AIDS and gay men not knowing they had the disease or hiding the disease out of, to save their career or embarrassment or what have you. But there are people that also knew that they were gay and they still engaged in it. There was no demonization. But when we remember the people who lost their lives, you gotta remember a lot of straight people lost their lives. A lot of straight people. So we have to remember that. A lot of straight people have lost their lives. A lot of people are still doing it. It's not only gay people. So AIDS is no longer just a gay disease. AIDS is just a disease in general. So let's be honest of where it started and how it spreads, so we could rightfully eradicate this disease. Okay, last and definitely not the least, we have Arthur Ashe, world famous tennis player. He contracted the disease by blood transfusion. Right? It was, very tragic. I remember that. It says the man who helped break the color barrier in professional tennis revealed he had AIDS in April 1992. He got HIV from a blood transfusion related to heart surgery. Once he went public, he spent the last months of his life raising awareness about HIV/AIDS and spoke about it on the floor of the United Nations. He died from complications of AIDS in February 1993. So, unfortunately, it's like very short-lived. These were the things that was happening. So people know when they were diagnosed of AIDS, they know they had less than 5 years yet to live back in those days, in the 80s and early 90s, so it's very tragic, so these are people, that died, from having HIV, and it's just a very sad thing, to see somebody go through. So we're going to switch gears here now and talk about what phobias are. In this particular instance, we're going to talk about what homophobia is. In my years of witnessing how homophobia has changed to fit a political and social agenda, it's being misused. Understood that, hey, no one wants to be discriminated against and things of that nature, but at the same time, the word phobia is really being misused. A phobia is basically something that's a fear, something that is like, the definition is an irrational fear, right? That's what a phobia is supposed to be. Something that you're just terrified of going through. It's either something you're terrified of going through, terrified of witnessing, terrified of. It could be so many things, but the whole thing, you can never get. So, for instance, if someone's afraid of heights, there's nothing you could do to get them up somewhere high. If someone's scared of spiders, they're running away. They don't care. Someone's scared of dogs. You get what I mean? So we're gonna break down what homophobia is, and we're gonna see how it has changed to fit a narrative to that, not even for it to be a phobia, for it just to be, oh, you don't like it. And that's not what a phobia is. So they're not even following the rules of the English language as far as definitions of what something could be. What they're doing is basically saying, hey, if you don't like something, you have a phobia against it. And it's very confusing, convoluted. It's basically they're trying to change the definition of a word so to suit people that are homosexual. So anything you don't like that's homosexual, whether it doesn't have to be a person, right? You can be totally fine with a person. But hey, I just don't prefer that particular act. Or you want to do that, that's fine, that's you. But that's not for me. I don't like that. I don't prefer that. You want to do it, knock yourself out. Oh, you're homophobic. I'm like, excuse me? Because I don't want to, partake in certain behaviors that is not heterosexual. I'm homophobic. So we're going to break this down. As far as definitions, this is what we do. This is what I do. So we can have a clear understanding of what the English language is. And when we say things, we know what they mean, right? And for that point on, then we can have a discussion. Then we could understand where everybody's coming from. But right now, when you when someone says, "Oh, you're homophobic," we all know it's not a fear. No one's running for the hills. No one's screaming their head off. It's basically someone, some of the times, disagreeing with something that someone that's homosexual is doing or saying. It's not necessarily a fear, but we're going to break the definition down of what this is. So you see right here, Merriam's Dictionary, homo, right? Now, the original word of homo, any of a genus of hominids that includes modern humans, H. sapiens, Homo sapiens, that's what that means, and several extinct related species such as Homo erectus and Homo habilis, right? So it has nothing to do with sex, it just has to do with human beings, right? The second definition, right, is the one that they're referring to, which is a slang, or it could be offensive, right? Or a gay person used as a term of abuse or disparagement, right? So we have those two things there, right? So if someone calls you a homo, according to the Webster's definition, yes, it has a derogatory connotation to it with sex, right? So, but we all know that Homo sapiens are just human. It has nothing to do with sex. Homo being basically the first modern man and woman, which would be African people. So, from an African perspective, as a whole, basically, you just had human beings, right? You had man, you had woman, right? That's all you had in our ancient great civilizations in South Africa, right? Way down there by the Congo Niger region, right? So these were black men, black women that just refer to each other in in their own respective ways, according to what? To nature, right? Just according to nature, right? We see everything in nature has a duality as far as night, day, man, woman, up, down, so on and so forth, right? So these terms that we're using right now are Western Europeanized terms that we're using right now. Not to say that they're not gay people or gay animals in Africa, but that's not something that that our society focused on. Why? Because it was a minority, right? It wasn't something to really uplift or really pay attention to, because it doesn't really produce anything as far as within the culture, because the culture, African culture, is family based, right? It's family based. It's based around community and people, right? So just moving forward, just keep that in mind. I know I'm talking from a Eurocentric point of view here, right? So, mind you, black people are used to be Europeans, right? So, in other words, um, you have black people that migrated, and they migrated to the northern part of Europe through the so-called um, African Peninsula, so-called Middle East, and they went there, and they went through mutations, right? Because after the Ice Age was over, they were able to go west instead of east, right? So after the Ice Age was over, they went east, and you can see this chart over here. You can see, what pretty much happened, right, after thousands of years, of us migrating, and then we went through certain changes here. Here's another graph too. So our culture changed as long as we did. So this is not a evolution. This is a mutation. This is just us, just getting adapted to our environment. So this is far from evolutionary process. This is basic a mutation, as you see right here. So now that we got the definition of homo, what homo is, right? Now we're going to explore phobia and what a phobia is. So here we have the definition of phobia, Webster's dictionary, and there's only two definitions for the word phobia. The first definition is an exaggerated, unusually unexpectable, and illogical fear of a particular object, class of objects, or situation, right? The second entry will be, definition of phobia will be exaggerated fear of a phobia. Number two, same thing, intolerance or aversion of fear, for fear, right? There's only two entries. And you have the examples right here. His fear of crowds eventually developed into a phobia, right? So, people don't like being around crowds, things like that, So, for instance, you have someone, let's say, who's afraid of crowds and they have to make a speech or and things like that. They could be paralyzed with fear or they could run off. So, it's a human instinct. If you feel you're in danger, either fight or flight. So that's one example. So phobia of crowds, right? Another one over here is some people have a phobia associated with driving on a freeway, and that may sound a little weird, but my godmother, she would not drive on the freeway at all. She will take the local roads, right? She might take like a boulevard or something like that, but she hates highways. She's scared of highways. So something that'll take on the highway, 20 minutes, she'll get there like almost an hour because she's taking local roads. So I know someone that has a fear of highways and, just have a phobia of it. The other one is, it's like a phobia of fat people and things like that. So these are the different types of phobias that for examples that we have. So this is what phobia is. So what we're going to do, we're going to put together homo and phobia, right? And we're going to see what the definition is for homophobia. And we're going to see if it makes sense because it's a compound word, right? You have one word, right? And then the other compound word is saying this is the phobia of, right? And we're going to see if it all adds up, see if it makes sense. When you Google homophobia, so this is what you get. You get this bullshit right here. Dislike of or prejudice against gay people. Phobia has nothing to do with a dislike. Remember, it's irrational fear. Fear, not dislike. I don't like eggplants. I dislike eggplants. I don't have a phobia against fucking eggplants. I dislike cold pizza. I don't have a phobia against cold pizza. This is fucking stupid. See how they change the word, the meanings to fit the narrative, so they could just slander anybody who may not agree with someone who's homosexual or a part of the LGBTQ community or whatever acronym they're going to add on to that, right? So that's the general definition that everyone's going by, which is wrong, right? Then you have the Wikipedia one of what homophobia is, and it says homophobia encompasses a range of negative attitudes and feelings towards homosexuality or people who are identified or perceived as being lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. Once again, nothing to do with a phobia. When you have a phobia, right, it's an irrational fear. There's no fear. These are all dislikes. There's people who have phobias that they can't, function on a day-to-day basis, or they go out their way to avoid people, things, and situations, like the definition has said about phobia. This is garbage. This is not it. This is how they're reinterpreting things. There's people that really have to go to therapy for phobias. So this is ridiculous. So this is the definition that how it should be being used, but it's not being used that way, right? So the Webster's Dictionary says homophobia, irrational fear of, aversion to, or discrimination against homosexuality or gay person. So remember, irrational fear, right? It has to be irrational fear. So we all know in this day and age, no one is saying, oh, more a gay person and heading for the hills and running away and, taking off in a car, running 60 miles an hour, run away from a gay person. That's what people do if they see a snake, if they see a spider, if they're scared of heights. That's the reaction that you're gonna get, That's the correct way of using that term homophobia. But if you had, and it happened to me in the past, if a guy makes a pass at you and he happens to be gay, like, hey man, no, 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 I don't swing that way. No, 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 no. I don't like that. That's gross. Whatever, if you like that, fine, but I don't swing that way. Oh, you're homophobic. So what? I'm supposed to let this man, you know, chase me and force me to do things just so I won't be called homophobic? It's idiotic. It's crazy. This is not what the definition is. No one is taking off. I have friends that are gay. I have people in my family that are gay. I'm not running away from them every time I see him at a family event. Like, oh my gosh, Charlie! Oh my gosh, get Charlie away from me! No, that's not happening, right? If if me and Charlie would chill, we would have fun. We talk about the good old days. We have discussions. We'll play sports. We do this. We do that. But if Charlie want to talk about his gay lifestyle, I'm like, no, no, not for me. I leave. I exit the conversation. I want nothing to do with that. Oh, that means you're homophobic. It's fucking retarded. So I'm going to tell you a personal experience that I've been through, and I saw a real phobia taking place. It wasn't with me. I didn't have a phobia like that. Um, I was probably like 15 or 14. I went to Disney World, right, with my family and everything. So I went with my mom's friend, right? So, we were at Epcot Center, and, Epcot Center, they have, every time you go to like a little theme that they have at Epcot Center, like Peter Pan. Let's say Peter Pan had a ride or something like that. Then it'd be like a Neverland gift store and things like that. So it was something like that. It was a while back. So, we went through the whole area and things like that. We was checking out the gift shop, right? So I went in there in the gift shop and things like that, and it was me and my mother's friend, right? And they got toys mostly there. It's Disney World and things like that. And they had this like little barrel that they had there, full of lizards, snakes, and things like that. Like rubber snakes and lizards and things like that. So I'm like, looking at, ooh, wow, I probably might want one. And she was like next to me, and I was like, hey, Vanessa, hey, look, this is cool. This woman went and started screaming, oh my God, no, get it away, and bolted out the store, like screaming, yelling, knocking people down, knocking displays down, all types of craziness. And everyone is like, what the hell's going on? What the hell's going on? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Because she's running, acting crazy. Snake, 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 running out, knocking people down. Some people are running. Some people are like, what the hell is going on? Some people are just looking at me like I did something wrong. We're at Disney World. Everyone's looking at me like it's all chaotic and it's all crazy. And she's just hauling ass and just running, screaming, snake, snake, snake. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like, what did I do? It's not real. It's not real. I'm telling her it's not real. But like, I didn't even think anything she heard me. She just started knocking people down, knocking displays down, almost tripped and fell. Like, I never seen anything like that in my life. Like, she just totally lost it. Totally lost it. Inside a gift store, inside Disney World. So I'm like, oh man. She ran towards my mom, and she's like, Mary, 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 snake, 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 snake. And I'm like, oh geez, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble now. And she's all like crying and shaking and everything. And I'm like, no, mom, no. It's not. And she's like, what did you do? What happened? What happened? And I was like, I don't know. I had a rubber snake, and it's fake. It's fake. It's not real. And then like my mother realized, like I saw in her face that she realized that, oh, I was like, what happened? What happened? She calmed her down first, and she was like, oh no, you see, because it's a they knew each other since they were like kids. So she, when she was a little kid, she, had, she's scared of snakes. She was like in the woods somewhere or something like that. There was like a snake next to her, almost bit her or something like that. So ever since she was a little kid, she was afraid of snakes. I'm like, oh wow, wow, really? And she just kept shaking. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. She's all shaking and like, like, and then, they're like, okay, it's not real. It's not real. And she's like, okay, I know it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And I'm like, wow. And that's a real phobia. I don't see people doing this, knocking people out the way because there's a gay person around or something like that, or saying, oh, there's homosexuals there, or a gay person said this, saying it's ridiculous. This, like, no one's doing that. Saying no one's hauling ass over a gay person. Saying, hey, they may dislike what you're saying. They may be not tolerant of what you're saying, but no one is, screaming like, like Jason or Freddy Krueger's after you, or Scream. Like, it's just ridiculous. So just recognize what homophobia is, right? Let's stop lying to each other. And at this point right now, it's to the point where I think there is something, I'm going to start using heterophobia. Because anytime you try to say something that's just, hey, I'm just plain Jane, pretty much, hey, I'm just a heterosexual man and things like that and stuff like that. If you're a man, it's toxic masculinity, especially if you're a black man, oh, toxic masculinity and all this other nonsense and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, this is a form of heterophobia. If you're gonna play that game, like, come on. So that's my experience as far as what living through of what a phobia is. So in conclusion, wrapping things up now, we know what a phobia really is by the dictionary definition to real life experiences to what my experience was as what a real phobia is when you're in fear of something, right? There's different levels of fear, and where we have phobias of, but we do know it's an irrational fear, it's an extreme fear of what it is, right? No one is being afraid of something and just being around and coexisting with something that you're fearful of, even if it's, to save your life and things like that. A fear always stays with you, right? So when we look at the word phobia and homophobia, that's what it is. People running away, people scattering, don't want nothing to do with it. They can't function. So that's what it is, people. So with that story in my experience, it was a rubber snake. And I mean, it couldn't get any more fake than, than what it looked like. But hey, once again, a phobia is a irrational fear. I mean, towards the end of the vacation, everything was kind of cool from there on out. It was fine, but I surely made sure not to mention the word snake, say snake, or anything like that. I make sure that I didn't have snake pattern clothing, like nothing, like not even anything in the reptile family I stayed away from, or make sure it wasn't around her because that was the most scariest thing I've ever seen. Like, in no way I was more scared than her, but I was afraid because I didn't know what was going on. So, yeah, that's what a phobia is. Conclusion, y'all. We're gonna bring it home. Just remember what a phobia is. What we go about what a phobia is, right? It's nothing to do with just an average dislike, right? It has to do with extreme fear, right? So this, from the beginning of what I was saying to this whole thing, this generation right now really don't know how the AIDS crisis began, or what were the first people that were affected by it, and the people that were around them that were also affected by it. So to say that AIDS is just a homosexual disease is right and wrong at the same time, right? To say that it only affects the homosexual community, that's where I take complete disagreement, and I take umbrage with it, because heterosexual people have died, which is the majority. The majority of people that died from HIV have been heterosexual people, because those heterosexual people were mingling with white gay men, right? So the whole thing about this fear that is only gay people are affected by AIDS is untrue, and I'm just totally disgusted with that. That's the reason why I'm making for this video, and just basically talking about there's other forms of fear, and we have to differentiate what is what, right? We have to differentiate what is what. So as a whole, what I'm saying, well, white men have been doing this, like I said, like Elton John, and he was upset because of what the baby said and things like that. But at the same time, there are regular everyday people who are not here with us anymore because of the AIDS epidemic, of what happened, right? So we have to give those people respect. Those people's lives mattered, right? Those people's lives mattered. Families were broken up. Families were destroyed, totally destroyed. My aunt, she was at the height of her career. That she had a family, she had a job, and when all that came into fruition, it was pulled up right up under you, right? So we have to tell the truth about AIDS. We have to tell the truth about AIDS and where it came from. All right, so hope you enjoyed this video. I try my best to bring insight and basically bring clarity to what it is, what it was, and what it is now. And we really have to really be on track as far as like words and definitions, and don't forget the people who suffered for catching AIDS and having AIDS, and the families that are broke up. This is a problem that affects everybody, especially heterosexual people, more than homosexual people. All right? Let's understand what HIV was, so we can understand what it is and what it should be, in understanding how we need to react to certain things, react to certain individuals, to be respectful of all groups of people, not just the homosexual community, but the heterosexual community that was also impacted very harshly. So the younger generation right now can understand what everyone has been through, and that which led up to this point, and not disrespecting the people who also died, right? We have to understand and respect all life that was impacted by this disease. So hope you enjoyed this channel, the stream, and peace, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.